Yo, what's up? This is Jay Dennis, and we're back with another Ranked and Reviewed. And today we are doing what is probably my favorite band of the subgenre of post-hardcore mixed with metalcore, Memphis May Fire. I may have said this about The Word Alive in my Ranked and Reviewed of The Word Alive a few months ago, but after re-listening to Memphis May Fire's 6 albums, I think they might have the advantage. But at any rate, my interest in that subgenre of post-hardcore, risecore, is only so deep. So that's why I'm only doing a limited number of bands, because during my late teens, early 20s, they were kind of like the trendy thing. They don't have as large of discographies or as much staying power as some of the bands that I listened to growing up. But to be fair, the bands are still much younger than some of the other bands I grew up with. So they very well could have staying power long term. They're just earlier on in their career, but probably still not my favorite genre, but a lot of great music, a lot of great songs, a lot of great memories to some of this material. So for Memphis May Fire, I will be doing 6 studio albums, 2009 Sleepwalking, all the way up until their most recent release, 2018's Broken. Now, part of what really got me into wanting to do this band sooner, because I've had this band on the list for a while, but I was not planning on doing them anytime soon, they have released 2 solid singles, which are probably their best songs at this point. I think it's Blood and Water and Death Inside. 2 incredible singles. I think they use like the same set or the same theme for both music videos, but holy shit. They came back hard with those singles, and I thoroughly enjoyed them. Those singles will not be reviewed or included on my top 10 list. But if they were, they would probably be 2 of my favorite, probably my 2 favorite Memphis May Fire songs. They came out fucking swinging with those last 2 songs. The hooks are fantastic. The breakdowns, the guitar work, everything is just phenomenal. But let's just focus on their 6 studio albums, which also have a lot of gems in them. And like I said, I'm going to go through their 6 albums from least favorite to most favorite. I've been listening to them since 2011 when the Holo had come out. I'm trying to remember if I've ever seen them live or at Warped Tour. Maybe I did once. I don't really remember. But back in like 2012 and the early 2010s, when I was like getting out of my band and trying to think of something new, Memphis May Fire did have a pretty sizable impact, not just on the metal scene. A lot of bands tried to copy their sound, but they had some inspiration to me as well. And then, of course, I'm going to end the video with my top 10 tracks. But I listened to them quite a bit from like 2011 up until like 2015. But then I hadn't listened to them too much the last 5 years up until more recently. But I'm very, very familiar with at least their first 4 albums, but then their last 2, I kind of had to give them a few listens before I figured out how to rank them. But like with pretty much all my other rankings, no albums are bad, but some are certainly better. So let's go ahead and get into it. At the number 6 spot, I was disappointed that this one ranked this low. I was hoping this one would be a sleeper, but it wasn't. Their 2016 release, This Light I Hold. I tried getting into it in like 2017, I think. My buddy had told me about them, about that album, and I don't know, I just really couldn't get into it at the time. I was more into nu metal and other like thrash metal and other things, like some of my older influences at the time. But upon re-listening to it a few times these last few weeks, it certainly does sound pretty good. The spread between the worst album and the best album is 8.2 all the way up to a 9.2. 2. So, I don't think there's any ties on this one, but pretty solid consistency between their 6 albums. But This Light I Hold is definitely the album I'd listen to the least. The only songs I really enjoyed off of it were That's Just Life, which might be one of their better ballads. I just love the guitar tone and riffs on there, and just solid hooks. And what's that song called? Better Things? Better Than This? Wait, why am I struggling with this? Hold on. It's like later on in the album. Better Things. Other than that, though, it's kind of an inconsistent album. Oh, Wanting More is also pretty good. But there's just no excellent tracks on here. Some of their weaker materials on this album, like The Enemy, Unashamed, The Antidote, just wasn't really big fans of those songs, and it kind of dragged the score down. But other than that, there's some pretty solid Memphis May Fire stuff on here, but I'm just not getting a solid theme or identity in this album. Most people say that Unconditional was where they started to kind of unravel and start sound inconsistent and repetitive. I think this was the album where it did. And kind of a missed opportunity where they had Jacoby Shaddix from Papa Roach, I think, on the title track. And while that song is pretty dang good, it's just not excellent. So missed opportunity here. Just not my favorite album. That's something I'd listen to from front to back again. But a couple of solid tracks on there. Least favorite album, their 2016 release, This Light I Hold. Number 5 spot goes to their most recent album, Broken, which I thought would go at the bottom in my mock ranking. And I think I put This Light I Hold even higher, but it got the worst spot. Broken, I could tell sometimes my judgment or my judgment is correct when I just can tell that a band's been around for a certain amount of time based on the name of the tracks or the album cover. I'm like, okay, this is the band where they tried to do something different. This is the album where they tried to do something different, or they changed the sound. Or if they're a metal band, this is where they predominantly went soft. And I was right. Broken really features no screaming whatsoever. Really not a whole lot of heaviness going on. But Memphis May Fire does the hard rock, alternative, of course, clean vocals, excellent. But when you're used to kind of like overbearing in a good way, intensity, heaviness, layers, fun guitar work, breakdowns, sound effects, and you kind of strip down the sound a little bit, it's going to be kind of hard to deliver some high quality music. So they did a little bit, though. Broken is marginally better than This Light I Hold. It's a shorter album, but there's a few more solid tracks on there. And it actually, in my opinion, probably opens with their best opening track, The Old Me. I think The Old Me is actually their best first track. Yes, I think it's better than The Sinner. I love The Old Me. I love the simplicity of it, but it's just so catchy. It's got that key of A sharp minor that I love so much, and it's easily the best track on the album. But Watch Out kind of does like that generic radio rock sound not too well. Sell My Soul is one of Memphis May Fire's weakest tracks. Picks back up with Who I Am, but there's a song, it's like in their top 5 on Spotify for some reason. It's called Heavy Is the Weight. It's got a really bad feature on it. I don't know what the fuck they were thinking with that feature. That song was ruined by that feature. Over It and Fool, so the back half of the album, Over It, Fool, Mark My Words, You and Me, and then Live Another Day. This is kind of why Broken is better. They actually picked up the quality of the music on the back half of the album. So, yeah, tracks 2 through 5, except for Who I Am, are kind of weak. But The Old Me, solid opening track, and then the back half of the album is all pretty solid. So, again, it's a more stripped-down sound, really no screaming, but Matty Mullins has a solid, clean voice regardless. So that's why Broken, this far in, and them kind of taking a risk here, delivers, and it's by no means their worst album, but it's certainly not their best. Number 4 spot. I'm actually really glad this album didn't go to the bottom, because I probably would have been crucified. But it's their debut album, Sleepwalking. This is their southern rock album with all the guitar riffs with the twang. Matty Mullins sounds a little bit more twangy here, but it's still a heavy post-hardcore album. It's just got a bit of a southern edge to it, but again, it's certainly heavier than an album like Broken, but like Broken, it's got kind of a more stripped down sound, and to me, Memphis May Fire sounds their best during their golden years, like, you know, albums 2 through 4, which at this point are clearly their top 3. They really found their sound in their sophomore album, but Sleepwalking was by no means a weak album. I re-listened to it and was kind of afraid I'd get kind of bored with the repetition, but there is once again solid guitar work on there. The solo on The Face With No Name is not to be fucked with. Sleepwalking, the title track, Quantities Their Quality, great breakdowns. Ghost in the Mirror is a great single. And it opens on a solid note too, with North Atlantic and A Giant in a Giant's World. In terms of consistency, Sleepwalking is just a very consistent, you know, mid-8 album. Like, it's an 8.5 out of 10. Like, it's a great album. Nothing excellent though. There's no songs on here that break the 9 to me. The highest rated tracks are Ghost in the Mirror and The Face With No Name, sitting at an 8.8. So like a high B. And it comes down to preference. I know a lot of fans back in the day said that they need to go back to their southern sound. Now they just sound generic breakdown risecore. It's like they were kind of one of the first bands to pioneer the sound. So by definition, they're not generic. They do the sound really well. And they have Sleepwalking. If they were to try to do another album like that, it might not come out as good. So it's not my favorite album from them, but it's cool that they did that sound. It's cool that they broke into the scene with that sound. But then I forget the name of the EP that came out in 2010 that preceded the Holo and was in between. That's where they really teased their new sound, the risecore sound, with Cameron Mizell producing and all that other stuff that was popular in the early 2010s. But all in all, Sleepwalking, solid album. Not my favorite, but definitely easy and worth it to listen to from start to finish. All right, now to the top 3. Number 3 spot. I actually thought this one would rank lower, and I'm kind of glad it didn't, because now I'm going to get less shit in the comments, you know, if people actually watch this video. I think I'm actually one of the first people to do an actual video on ranking Memphis May Fire, so here I am breaking ground. Number 3 spot goes to their 2012 release, Challenger. I had listened to this album again recently, and I thought, man, this album did not age as well as some of their other stuff. But there's a handful of high quality tracks on here that kind of elevated the score overall. I think albums like Sleepwalking are overall probably like better albums, but Challenger has a couple of excellent tracks on here, like I said, that offset some of the weaker material and bring it up. I did listen to Challenger quite a bit when it came out in 2012. It was one of the soundtracks to that summer, along with like Word Alive's Life Cycles, fucking Chelsea Grin's Evolve EP, whoever else was putting music out at the time, like Abandon All Ships. I was really into post-hardcore at the time. Other bands currently escape me right now. Maybe Texas in July. They're not post-hardcore, they're metalcore. Anyway, so Challenger, in my opinion, was a step back from Holo. But there's still some classics on here. You know, the whole chanting thing and Without Walls is a little overplayed, but it doesn't mean that the rest of the intro still isn't solid. It goes into Alive in the Lights pretty damn well. Alive in the Lights is an excellent song. Then it goes into one of their best songs of all time, Prove Me Right. The fucking message in that song, along with the guitar work. So many hooks in that song. I love Prove Me Right. The quality still stays pretty high with Red and Tooth and Claw. Vices, in my opinion, is a little overrated. Not my favorite single from them. Kicks back up with Legacy with that solid intro and that solid breakdowns and pretty good chorus. So look, I'm not a Kellen Quinn fan from Sleeping with Sirens, so I personally think Miles Away is overrated. Probably one of the weaker tracks on the album. He's not a bad singer. I'm just not a fan of that style. I don't like the overly high, feminine sounding voices. Like I can barely do hair metal. I'm like, it's modern day hair metal vocals where the male goes so fucking high. I typically like lower, more masculine sounding singers, and that's why I tend to gravitate more towards other types of metal and alternative. But it doesn't mean I don't like it. Of course, I like Matty Mullins. I don't care if he's got a higher voice. He sounds phenomenal. Kellen Quinn, if that's his name. Kellen, it's not Colin Quinn, it's Kellen. Anyway, a little too high for my taste. Picks back up, though, with Jezebel. Excellent track. Losing Sight, definitely one of the better features. They had Danny Worcestershire Sauce from Asking Alexandria on there, and that's a pretty damn good song. He's got a great feature on there. Generation Hate's one of the weaker tracks, and then I didn't count Vessels as a rateable track, but overall Challenger got like an 8.6 out of 10. And is sitting kind of comfortably at the number 3 spot. Just a handful of really excellent tracks, but the rest of the album, really wouldn't go back and listen to this one from start to finish too much, because the back half has a couple of missed opportunities. Number 2 spot, an album that I see way too many people basically, to me, it's a very underrated album, but it does have a lot of sentimental value. It's their 2014 release, Unconditional. Now, the only thing I will dock points off of for this album is the fucking artwork. The artwork sucks. Artwork doesn't indicate the sound of the music, though, but if you're looking for the whole album experience, yeah, if you love the artwork and you love the music, then you look at the entire unit as a whole and go, wow, what an experience. But the music is incredible, the experience is incredible when you listen to this, despite the lousy artwork. I just don't think it was rendered well, and they kind of simplified their logo on it. But anyway, I think Unconditional was a great step forward from Challenger. Challenger sounded like they were trying too hard to replicate the Holo and try to build on it in kind of some of the wrong ways, at least in my opinion. I think Unconditional sounds literally unconditional. It sounds more authentic, in my opinion. I know some fans will say it sounds repetitive, it sounds like recycled music. I disagree. I think the guitar work, and I'm speaking from a guitarist perspective, the riffs are actually more challenging and complex in some parts. The breakdowns are more memorable. The drumming is better. Matty Mullins' hooks are more consistent and more persistent on this album. And again, you got a little bit of the nostalgia and the sentimental value here, so I have a bias towards this album, but I think Beneath the Skin is such a fantastic song. I love the hook. I love the key of A sharp. Something I haven't said, I was going to save it for my number 1 spot, but for Challenger and Unconditional, as well as the number 1 spot, the Holo, what I love a lot about Memphis May Fire is they predominantly play in my 2 favorite tunings. They play in drop G sharp and they play in drop C sharp. Excuse me. And so there's a lot of great sounds and a lot of great just feelings that are triggered by those. Like, it makes me think of certain parts of my childhood. And, you know, for C sharp, it might be because of like hybrid theory. For G sharp, it might be because of other stuff in the same key. I'm kind of just sharing some weird, obscure things about myself here. But anyway, Unconditional, songs like Possibility that have that really cool phased lo-fi intro. The simplicity of Not Enough with the lack of screaming, somehow it's still an excellent delivery, though. So I think Not Enough is a very underrated track. Possibilities, Beneath the Skin, easily the best tracks on the album. But what really makes this album stand out is the excellence of the closing. Pharisees, the freaking aggression against pseudo-religious people, and then Divinity, the fucking uplifting. Like, you have the aggression of Pharisees, but then it's counteracted by the beauty and the uplifting spirit of a song like Divinity. So, like, the storytelling and the sequencing of tracks 10 and 11 with Pharisees and Divinity really make the album close on a solid bang. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. So, Unconditional is kind of like Challenger in a way where, yeah, there's a couple dips in the album, but Unconditional has more high points, in my opinion. No Ordinary Love is also solid. There's really no, like, bad tracks on the album. The lowest ranked track was Speechless, The Rose, and The Answer, but those all have like really good parts in them. So like, it's just a very solid album with some pretty great high points. But what's better than that? It's easy. It's the number one spot. Their 2011 release, The Holo, the sophomore success once again. Now people would say, some fans would say, oh, they did Sleepwalking was better, and then they got all generic and breakdown. Durr. Here's the thing about Memphis May Fire. They're excellent musicians. They're not generic guitarists. Like, the guitar work is actually pretty technical and it's hard, but it's catchy and it's well done. It's not my style, but if I was a post-hardcore player with, of course, that metalcore injection in there, I would strive to be as good as the Memphis May Fire guitar players. Like the guy can riff, he can shred. The lead work is great too. But yeah, the Holo just fucking comes out the gate, just punches you in the face with the center. That iconic chorus. It comes out even stronger with the Unfaithful and the drop G sharp. I know a lot of people love The Victim. It's not one of my favorite tracks on the album, but it's still a high quality track. But one of my all-time favorite this album actually has two of my top Memphis May Fire tracks. You have The Abandon, which is just a freaking abrasive. It's just an assault on the senses with that drop G sharp, dun 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 dun, and then the transitional melodic parts, the closing track with the leads, and just the middle of the album gets a little low for me with the Deceived and the Commanded, not their best tracks, but then it picks up with the back half of the album just being excellent, just like Unconditional. You got The Burden, which I'm not going to count this track on my top 10 because it's an instrumental, but The Burden is absolutely one of their best, not one of their best, one of the best of all time instrumentals. I just get so many nostalgic feelings for like summers in the 2000s and like Resident Evil 4 for some reason. It's because of the key that it's in, but it just makes me think of like rainy days in Florida and stuff like that. But The Burden, The Haunted, and then the closing tracks, fucking their top track in my opinion, The Reality, just the build up, the chorus, the drop G sharp, the closing, and then the fucking Redeemed, that 6-minute powerhouse of pure aggression, pure beauty in the melodic. Like the Holo just is easily their heaviest but also well executed melodic album all at the same time. And it's marginally better than Unconditional, but the Holo, I had a feeling that it was easily going to be their best album. A lot of sentimental value here, kind of the album that got me into the genre for the most part, but I was listening to other post-hardcore, since like 2009, like Bless the Fall, Attack, other bands like that at the time, Asking Alexandria. But let's recap from 6 to 1. This Light I Hold, Broken, Sleepwalking, Challenger, Unconditional, and of course, number one spot goes to the Holo with a 9.1 out of 10. Definitely, probably like in my top 30 albums of all time. I love the Holo. And my top 10 tracks from Memphis, once again, kind of in no particular order, are Face with No Name from Sleepwalking, The Old Me from Broken, The Redeemed, Not Enough, Alive in the Lights, Beneath the Skin, The Abandoned, Prove Me Right, Possibilities, and then The Reality is their best track. Thank you guys for tuning in and listening to this. Make sure you subscribe. Be sure to go to the ranked and reviewed playlists. I've done about, 34, 35 of these so far. Mostly metal, but I got some different genres going on, and I got like at least 20 more on the horizon. So be sure to check it out and comment what you agree or disagree with. What are your favorite songs? Do you have any interesting concert stories from them? Album stories? What do you agree with objectively or subjectively with me on my analysis of the excellent post-metalcore, hardcore, whatever band that is Memphis May Fire? I hope they keep putting out new music. They are on fire right now. And if they're working on an album, I'm sure as fuck excited to hear it, because if it's anything like their first two singles, it's easily going to be their best album. Anyway, peace.